The buses rattled up the mountain road, filled with 43 students from Riverside Community College. It was their annual environmental science field trip, 3 days and 2 nights at the Whispering Pines campground, nestled deep in the Cascade Mountain range. Sarah Mitchell pressed her face against the window, watching the trees grow denser, taller, older. The autumn sunlight barely penetrated the canopy here. This was old-growth forest, untouched, primal, creepy, isn't it? Her roommate Jessica said, popping her gum. Sarah shook her head. It's beautiful. She had no idea how wrong she was. Professor Hendricks stood at the front of the bus as it lurched to a stop. All right, people. Listen up. Buddy system at all times. No one wanders off alone. We meet back here Sunday at 2 p.m. sharp. Cell service is non-existent, so don't bother trying to post your selfies until we're back in civilization. Laughter rippled through the bus. Sarah grabbed her backpack and stepped into the dying afternoon light. The air smelled of pine needles and something else, something organic and ancient, like decay and rebirth happening simultaneously. The campground was a clearing surrounded by towering Douglas firs. A single ranger station stood at the entrance, its windows dark. A wooden sign read, Whispering Pines ESD. 1952 permanently closed 2019. Wait, Sarah called to Professor Hendricks. I thought this was an active campground. He waved dismissively. Budget cuts. The rangers don't maintain it anymore, but it's still public land. Perfectly safe. Now set up your tents before dark. Ominous musical sting night won the sound. Sarah shared a tent with Jessica and another girl named Amanda. As darkness fell, the forest came alive with sounds. Not bird calls or cricket songs. Other sounds. Do you hear that? Sarah whispered around midnight. Hear what? Jessica mumbled, half asleep. At the humming. Like voices, but not quite. It's the wind. Go to sleep. But Sarah lay awake, listening. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. A low, rhythmic murmur that rose and fell like breathing. Like the forest itself was sleeping fitfully, dreaming dark dreams. At 3:17 a.m., she heard footsteps circling their tent. Slow, deliberate, too heavy to be a deer. She held her breath, waiting for someone to unzip the tent, to reveal it was just a prank. The footsteps stopped directly outside the tent flap. Silence. Then, slowly, they walked away, back into the darkness between the trees. Sarah didn't sleep again that night. Day 2 the expedition morning brought relief. In daylight, the forest seemed less menacing. Students gathered around campfires, comparing stories about strange sounds and weird dreams. This place gives me the creeps, Amanda said, poking at her instant oatmeal. That's just because you're city people, said Marcus, a transfer student from Montana. Woods are woods. Nothing out here but trees and raccoons. Professor Hendricks announced the day's activity, small group hikes to study the local ecosystem. Sarah's group consisted of 6 students, including Jessica, Amanda, and Marcus. They headed west, following a barely visible trail deeper into the forest. Stayed together, their teaching assistant, Kyle, reminded them, "We'll go 2 miles in, take samples, then head back." But at the 2-mile mark, Sarah noticed something. "Kyle, look at this tree." It was a massive fir, easily 15 feet in diameter. But it wasn't the size that caught her attention. It was the markings. Carved into the bark, weathered but still visible, were symbols, not graffiti or initials. These were deliberate, repeated patterns that spiraled up the trunk. And beneath them, words in what looked like Old English: "The woods remember. The woods require." Probably just some hikers being dramatic, Kyle said, but his voice was uncertain. "There," Marcus pointed. Another one, then another, and another. Every ancient tree bore the same markings. "We should head back," Amanda said quietly. But when they turned around, the trail was gone. The separation okay. "Don't panic," Kyle said, though he was clearly panicking. "We just got turned around. The trail is." "It's right, that wasn't." They walked for 30 minutes, trying to retrace their steps, but the forest seemed to shift around them. Trees that should have been landmarks disappeared. The sun became impossible to locate through the dense canopy. "My compass is spinning," Marcus said, voice tight with fear. "It won't point north. It just keeps spinning." "Phones are dead," Jessica added. "Mine won't even turn on." That's when they heard it. A humming, rising from the earth itself, vibrating through the tree roots, resonating in their bones. That same sound Sarah had heard the night before, but louder now, clearer. It was words. Ancient words in no language they recognized, repeating over and over. "One!" Kyle screamed. They scattered. Sarah ran blindly through the undergrowth, branches tearing at her clothes and face. Behind her, she heard screaming Amanda's voice, cut short with terrible finality. She didn't stop. She ran until her lungs burned, until her legs gave out, until she collapsed beside a small stream. And there, gasping for air, she waited for the others. They never came. Night too alone as darkness fell. Sarah tried to think rationally. She followed the stream down how water always led to civilization, right? But after an hour of walking, she found herself back at the carved tree where this nightmare began. Impossible. She'd walked in a straight line, following the stream. The tree stood before her, its carved symbols now seeming to glow faintly in the moonlight. The woods remember. The woods require. That's when she noticed the offerings. At the base of the tree, half buried in decades of fallen needles, were objects. A child's shoe from the 1960s. A class ring. A driver's license from 1998. A smartphone, cracked and weathered. and fresh among them Amanda's backpack. Sarah's blood turned to ice. No. 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 A sound behind her. She spun around. Nothing. Just trees and darkness and that endless, awful humming. But now she understood what the humming was saying. As if her brain had finally learned the language, one must stay. One must stay. One must always stay. Day 3, the truth, Sarah didn't sleep. She climbed a tree as high as she dared and clung to the branches, watching the darkness below. Shapes moved between the trees. Not animals. Not human. Tall, impossibly thin figures that seemed to be made of shadow and bark, with eyes that glowed like foxfire. They circled her tree, reaching up with branch-like fingers, but never quite touching. They were waiting. When dawn finally broke, the figures melted back into the forest. Sarah climbed down, every muscle screaming. She had to get back to camp. Sunday at 2 p.m. the buses would leave. She just had to survive until then. Using the sun's position, she oriented herself and walked east. Hours passed. The forest seemed to resist her, throwing obstacles in her path, fallen trees, deep ravines, thorny undergrowth. But finally, miraculously, she heard voices. The camp. She burst through the tree line at 1:47 p.m., sobbing with relief. Students were packing up tents. Professor Hendricks was calling out names for attendance. Sarah. Jessica ran toward her. Oh my God. Where have you been? We've been looking everywhere, looking. Sarah gasped. What do you mean? We got separated yesterday. Amanda, did you find Amanda? And Kyle and Marcus? Jessica's face went pale. Tell. What are you talking about? We've all been here. You wandered off last night after dinner. We searched until midnight. No. We went on a hike yesterday morning. 2 days ago. We found the carved trees in Sarah. Honey, Professor Hendricks approached, concern in his eyes. The hike is scheduled for today. We haven't gone yet. You've been missing for less than 24 hours. The world tilted. That's impossible. I've been gone for 2 nights. I saw things. Amanda's backpack at the tree, and the figures. And let's get you checked out by a medic, Hendricks said gently. You might have hit your head. I'm not crazy, Sarah screamed. But doubt crept in. Everyone was looking at her with pity. Jessica was there, and Amanda was there, loading her backpack onto the bus. Marcus was arguing with Kyle about something trivial. They were all there. All fine. Had she dreamed it? Some kind of fever dream or mental break? Everyone accounted for, the bus driver called. Yes. All 43, Hendricks confirmed. The buses rumbled to life. The departure, Sarah sat in the back, staring out the window as the camp disappeared behind them. Jessica sat beside her, unusually quiet. I'm sorry, Sarah whispered. I don't know what happened to me. It's okay, Jessica said softly. As they rounded the final bend, Sarah looked back one last time at the forest and froze. Standing at the tree line were 4 figures. Cal, Marcus, Amanda, and herself. All 4 stood motionless, watching the buses leave. Their skin was bark. Their eyes were hollow. Their mouths moved in unison, forming words. One must stay. Sarah grabbed Jessica's arm. Do you see them? Please tell me you see them. Jessica turned to look, her face emotionless. I don't see anything, Sarah. But as she turned back, Sarah saw it just for a moment, the slight glow behind Jessica's eyes. The way her skin seemed just slightly too smooth, too perfect. The way she didn't quite move like a living person should. Sarah's hand went to her own face, touching her cheek. It felt like skin. But when she pulled her hand away, there was bark dust on her fingertips. The bus rolled on through the mountains, carrying 43 students back to Riverside. Only 42 of them were still human. Epilogue: the police found 4 bodies 3 weeks later. Kyle Merchant, age 24. Marcus Torres, age 21. Amanda Chen, age 20. And Sarah Mitchell, age 20. All discovered at the base of the same ancient Douglas fir, 2 miles from Whispering Pines campground. The coroner estimated they'd been dead for approximately 3 weeks. Cause of death: exposure. But the coroner noted something peculiar. The bodies were arranged in a perfect circle around a tree, and in each of their hands was a small carving, crude figures made of bark and pine needles. Each figure had a number carved into it. Kyle's figure, 1998, Marcus's figure, 2008, Amanda's figure, 2015, Sarah's figure, 2023, a Riverside Community College. A girl named Sarah Mitchell attended classes. She smiled when appropriate. She answered questions correctly. She seemed perfectly normal. But her roommate Jessica started to notice things. Sarah never blinked anymore. She stood at the window for hours, staring toward the mountains. And late at night, when she thought everyone was asleep, she hummed. A low, rhythmic sound that rose and fell like breathing, like the forest itself, dreaming its dark dreams. One must stay. One must stay. One must always stay. The woods remember. And the woods have what they require.